Accessibility testing tools. We're going to be diving into tool testing with examples using this topic. Now, for an introduction, this presentation delves into a primary understanding of accessibility testing tools using the effectiveness of our toolkit and AxDev tools. This would allow us to properly understand the effectiveness of accessibility testing tools on websites, which would further allow us to seek improvements in areas of web development. Now, key terms in accessibility testing tools, we have accessibility testing tools and accessibility testing. Now, accessibility, according to C right here 2025, accessibility is whereby information is made usable, purposeful, and interpretive to as wide an audience as possible. Testing tools, according to Digital Adoption, Testing Tools 2025, testing tools are software used to evaluate and assess the functionality of other software systems. Accessibility testing, according to Catalan 2025, accessibility testing is a practice of ensuring that website, digital and media content and software is interpretive and usable by those with sensory or cognitive disabilities. Now, the two tools we'll be diving into is from the Cynthia Says Art Toolkit and AxDev tool. Now, why did we choose these tools out of all of them? Now, the reason why we chose the Art Toolkit was, according to Dynamapper 2023, the Art Toolkit is a program that evaluates the web accessibility of sites and applications from within the Chrome developer tools. What it does, it generates reports of web accessibility evaluations, automatically checks single pages, password protected or restricted pages, supports formats like XHTML and HTML, and being web-based programs, the licenses are free and is easily accessible. Now, AxDev Tools was chosen because it allows testing of individual pages on a portal. Feedback is provided and understood by those even less technologically adept. It is free, so payment for the license of the software is not necessary. It supports CSS, HTML, and images. It is online, therefore you don't need a personal device to access them. Now, um, we did an experiment using these two tools and we created data for them. Now, the experiment methodology and testing for them. The testing. Now, we're testing accessibility testing tools. The aim of this experiment is to demonstrate the effectiveness of accessibility testing tool against a metric or some sort of uh, scale or something of that sort. We took measures in case of bias, which is to randomly generate the website selection. So we'll be using those websites for both tools, which is randomly generated by randomgenerator.io. Now the method. Firstly, extensions of each accessibility testing tools were installed. That was both the extension for AxDev, which was installed on Chrome, and Cynthia, which was also in Cynthia Says Art Toolkit, which is also installed on Chrome. Now, the 5 websites were selected and uploaded on the tools after they were randomly generated. Using different metrics, each website was analyzed, and then a table compiling the results and an analysis was made. Now, we did a rating metrics for them. Each parameter has a scale from 1 to 10, where the more issues the website has on a parameter, the higher the score. So if the parameter has 10, that means this website was full of issues on that parameter. If it had 1, that means it had little to none issues. Next, we go on to the parameters of the accessibility testing tools. The first one is the Cynthia Says Art Toolkit. We have images, keyboard navigation, interactive controls, parsing, contrast, page navigation and language, structure and semantics, usability, and practice. For images, these are pictures on the web page. Keyboard navigation. This is to check if parts of the website are easily accessible from only using a keyboard. Interactive controls include buttons, slides, menus, lists, hyperlinks. Parsing. Analyze and interpret the syntax of a text or program to extract relevant information. Contrast, the color contrast between text and background colors. Page navigation language, access to different parts of the page and language. If it was readable, structure and semantics, understandable and easy. If it was understandable and easily interpreted, usability in practice, if you can easily use it without much practice. Now let's move on to the parameters for the dev tools. We have color contrast, alternative text, screen reader compatibility, uh, if the links have discernible text, landmarks for page content, interactive controls, and it was in compliance with WCAG 2.1. The color contrast, as we earlier said, is the difference between the text and background colors if they're correctly matching. Alternative text, extra info that pops up at images, graphs, charts. Screen reader compatibility, proper structuring of headings and landmarks, whereby the links have discernible text, whereby hyperlinks are functional, with easy to read text to identify them without clicking on them. Landmarks for page content allow easy navigation about the page, especially from body to the header to the footer and so on. Interactive controls, buttons, links, slides, menus, lists, and the WCAG 2.1 uh, conventions, which is a set of internationally recognized guidelines to help make websites more accessible. Now, observations of the experiment. Using the R toolkit, we can see that we ran 5 different websites, and using the parameters, we were able to compile set of observations based on, of course, the 8 parameters that was originally identified for the R toolkit. Now, as you can tell, there are different parameters, so websites perform differently based on their content, obviously. This is the one for Axe DevTools, the observations. We use the same 5 websites to confirm, to prevent any bias, to keep the validity of the research. And as you can tell, there's a variety of observations that were seen and noted. Um, a remarkable one was that all websites that were generated um, acquired or acquired towards the code for WCAG 2.1, the highest being AAA, the lowest being A. They stand okay with AA. Now, analysis of the findings. For using the art toolkit, the first website, it was a very good website. It had good images, average keyboard navigation contrast. It had good parsing, interactive control, and semantics. Overall, we can conclude that people who are cognitively impaired, people who can't read properly, dyslexic, people who have any type of Down syndrome, autism, and so on, would be able to use this website satisfactorily. For the second website, it wasn't so good. There were poor keyboard navigation, along with poor page navigation, and instruction semantics were all over. Uh, it was very hard for the average person to actually read it. So it's not something that would be recommended for even the cognitively impaired. For website 3, had great interactive controls, satisfactory semantic structures, and page navigation. Um, because of the interactive controls, it will allow the cognitively impaired to easily find their way around the website. For the fourth one, for interactive controls, it was quite average in the semantic structures and language. It seemed like an okay website, but again, due to poor interactive controls, it would make it difficult for those who are cognitively impaired to access and use it. For the fifth one, it was a generally bad website. Even though suffering from um, that did not suffer from any cognitive impairments, it was very hard to utilize, access, and read. There was a lot of issues with the interactive tools, language, semantics. It was very tiresome to utilize. Next, we go on to the analysis for Axe DevTools, the fourth website. There was poor color contrast with great interactive controls, landmarks, and good screen reader compatibility, which allows those who are visually impaired to satisfactorily use that website. For the second website, it had good screen reader compatibility, great interactive controls and landmarks. Again, the visually impaired would be able to utilize it. Um, the color contrast was not so good. So it would actually it will cause some type of impairment uh, towards people who are partially visually impaired, like people with cataract, glaucoma, and so on. Website 3 and 4 both had poor showings. Uh, they, I would not recommend that the visually impaired use them. Website 5 was the worst website. It did horribly on this test. Now, for the discussion, now the art toolkit basically, if you to compare it, it was less intuitive than the AxDev tool. Uh, it listed all the errors it was and everything that was right and wrong with the website. It was quite hard to read. There were limited options when choosing parameters, and the analysis was cumbersome. It was too tiring to read. All websites used in both the tools were the same to avoid bias and to allow comparison. There were differences in the metrics of AxDev and ArcToolkit, which may question the accuracy of the results themselves. For AxDev tools, it was more intuitive than ArcToolkit. There are more options to choose from concerning how you wanted the web page to be tested individually or the entirely, and a neat layout. Parameters, however, are not explicitly stated, so you have to derive it. Again, to prevent bias and improve accuracy, the same websites were used, and the different results in both sets would raise questions concerning the validity of the websites and the tools themselves. Finally, to conclude, from the information gathered by the testing tools AxDev and ArcToolkit, it could be surmised that the websites were not properly suited for the cognitively and visually impaired. The language and structure, along with landmarks and interactive controls, were lacking in the website, making them less intuitive and not suitable or accessible by the cognitively impaired. Screen reader compatibility was also poor in the website, which would affect the accessibility of the visually impaired from using the websites. Overall, the website didn't get good reading. Thank you, that's all for my presentation.